Hey everyone, I just wanted to really quickly give you a little intro to the Desmos teacher activities. So if you go to desmos.com, you might be familiar with the graphing calculator, but just go ahead and scroll down to the teachers browse activities. You can also go to teacher.desmos.com. I just go to Desmos. A couple of options. If you're just getting started, again, you do have to create an account. If you're just getting started though, don't worry about setting up class. Like you can set up your own classes and assign them different things this way. It makes it a lot easier for managing purposes. I'll make a different video on that later. But for our cases, let's just say we're going to do an activity. Desmos has a lot of great activities already made. So if you wanted to search something about, I don't know, linear functions, you can type it in there and take a look at what they have. Some are like what Desmos made, some might be something that another teacher made. So I'm actually going to go to my custom ones just to show you an example of what I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to operations, and I'm actually going to, now let's say you pick an activity, you're going to go over to assign, and if you have classes set up, you can assign to a class, or you can assign a single session code. All right, and you choose how long you want it to be active for. I usually do 2 weeks, 1 year is not necessary. And you do create invite code. Okay, and that creates a code specific just for that class. You can use it for all your classes. I like to have a different code for each class just so I can compare data. And then you would go ahead and click on View Dashboard. Okay, now this is something you would want to take a screenshot of or have displayed on the board for as your students are joining. They go to student.desmos.com. A lot of the times they forget the student part and they're like, mine's a calculator, mine looks like a graph, what do I do? So just go ahead and make sure that you address that. That seems to be a common misconception. And they're actually, even though it looks visually like there's a space, there's really not a space in between when they enter the code. All right, so you would close that out, and this is what your dashboard would look like. All right, when your students come up, they would pop up over here on the side, and you'd be able to see them. So I'm going to pull up one where I already had students complete it, just so you can see some of the options about what it looks like. So I'm just going to go back into here. All right, so my students all showed up, and now what I have this on is I clicked anonymize. And when you make it anonymous, if I scroll over, I can see actually who the student is, but it gives everybody a mathematician's name. So that way, if they're responding and they see other people's responses, they're not like, oh, this is what so-and-so said. They don't actually know who is assigned, unless they shout it out and be like, I'm Einstein. Who's Alexander Diaz? So I do like the anonymized feature. You can also, if it's not, you can also sort it by the time that they signed in first to the one who signed in last. You can shuffle it. So if kids are, kind of catching on to who's who, you can shuffle it. So those are some options there. Now, up here are all the different slides in the activity. If you wanted to, so when you click on it, if you are in teacher view, you can see as they respond what they're responding and see all of their individual responses. So this first screen, I could do an overlay. This was like just getting an idea of how do they feel, what's going on for that day, and I can see that most of them are positive, but a few tired ones, and you can read out. But again, I could see who it is, so if they make a comment that I might be concerned about, or I want to, I'm like, I can know who to look out for. So just the anonymous feature is really, really nice. You can see it from the student's perspective. This is what would be on the student's board. So you are familiar with what they are seeing. And the summary page, this is where everything is across the board. A dot means that they have put in an answer onto that slide. It doesn't mean it's correct or wrong. It means that you need to look it over. If there's a dash, it just means that there was no place for the student to respond. When there's a check mark or an X, it means that there is, it's kind of like Desmos is checking the answer for you. The student might not know if they got it right or not, but you can find out if it is an auto check kind of problem. Desmos will tell you if they got it right. We can see down here that this student has not answered any of these slides. Okay, and this is how you scroll left or right. Okay, so again, if you do see a dot and you know that there is an answer, it just also means that there might be something else you have to look at. Now, how to get started. Another cool feature about this is, you know how there's always those kids that work ahead, right? Well, there's a couple of options that you can do. Maybe, so when I was beginning this lesson, the first thing I might do is I like to be in the summary page here. So I have that they're going to, like, hey guys, go to Desmos today, but I want to set the pacing. I don't want them to go ahead of where I need them to be. So I might limit it to just screen 1, and maybe I say to screen 2, right? I could do it that way. Let's say I wanted to go, you know what, let's go from screen 1 to 4. So I could restrict them to those 4, and I would just click restrict. So if I was in the student view, I could not go past screen 4, or slide 4 rather. Okay, and you can always edit this. So like, oops, I didn't mean to click that. I really want them, I'm gonna go from here. You would just start over again. So let's just say, you know what, I really just want them to tell me how they're feeling and take a look at what we're going to be doing. So now they are restricted to those 2. All right. Now, again, if I want to pace them through, all I have to do is I can keep adding. If I click the plus button, I can keep just adding, like, okay, now let's go on to the next one, and it will move everyone over there. The other thing that's really, really nice too is, let's say I just stop this all together and I'm like, I want everybody, I don't want anyone to be able to go back to slide 1 or slide 2. I want everybody right here on slide 3. And what will happen is when you go to the summary page, you will see who is actively on here, because it will highlight the student. If it is not highlight them, or if you see like this little person icon that's still on 1, it's a hint that they are actually in a different window and they're not where they need to be. So you can kind of call them out on that and be like, hey, I need you to make sure you're back on the Desmos tab, so we're on the same screen. Because if they're on the tab, it will automatically push them to the slide that you are on. And from there, you can keep adding. Like, so if I only wanted them to see one screen at a time, I could use those little arrow buttons, okay? Add button, it means that they can go back to slide 4, but I'm just adding now that we can see it as they go. And if you just are like, you know what, let me take the pacing off, it's the end of the lesson, we'll go ahead and stop pacing and you can jump around as needed. The other thing too is, if you don't want them to do any work whatsoever, you're like, nope, I need you to stop typing, I need you to just listen to what I'm about to say, you can click pause and it will pause the activity. I tend to do this at the end of the class period if I don't want them going home to work on it. I want us to pick up where we left off. I need to stop and see who did what in a certain amount of time. That's where I will click the pause. So they can get into it, but they can't do anything with that. So those are some basic features for just how to kind of pace your students through and go through a lesson or an activity with your students. So again, you've got the summary view. You kind of get a big overlook about how did the students do, like, okay, they've hit everything. If it's a gray box, it means they did not look at that slide. You have the anonymized feature. You can scroll here. Teacher view. If you click on a slide, it gives everybody's answers and kind of groups it. But like, okay, I can see that all 18 students agreed that it can be simplified to here. Let's pick one where they had to kind of give an answer. Here, again, in teacher view, it's really nice. You can see their work. You can see their typed in, answered. Like, okay, I see that most of us are agreeing. Oh, I really like how Gloria shared hers, and I can pull that up onto the screen and show that into the front of the class. Again, with the anonymous feature, they don't know who it is in the classroom except under their mathematician name. This little camera here lets you take snapshots of it, and that's just an extra feature. I just really share that, and you can dive into that a little bit more. You go up into snapshots It's just like, ooh, here's some great example of work. Or maybe you want to compare one student's work to another and you can make them into little collections. And again, like I said, you can also see what it looks like from a student's view. So you're like, well, remember on slide 4, this is all the information that you saw, and so forth. So, yep, that is how we have it there. And then sometimes if there's little pop-ups about teacher information, things like that, you can go from there. I hope you find that helpful, and good luck exploring Desmos.